You moved to a new apartment. Finally. You packed your bags, signed the lease, and walked away from that place you couldn't stand anymore. The cracked walls, the noisy neighbors, the energy that felt heavy every time you walked through the door, and for the first few weeks everything felt different. Fresh paint, new beginnings, a blank slate. But then something strange happened. 3 months later, you noticed the faucet was leaking. The neighbors upstairs started playing loud music at midnight. And that familiar feeling, that heaviness, it crept back in. Different walls, same emptiness. Let me ask you something. Have you ever changed your job, your city, your relationship, only to find the same problems waiting for you on the other side? You left a toxic workplace, the new one has different faces but the same politics. You ended a relationship that drained you. The new person triggers the same wounds. You moved across the country for a fresh start, and somehow the fresh start feels exactly like the old one. Here's what nobody talks about. Most people spend their entire lives rearranging the furniture on a sinking ship. They believe, truly believe, that if they just change the external circumstances, happiness will follow. New house equals new life. New partner equals new love. New job equals new purpose. But what if I told you that the house was never the problem? What if the job was never the issue? What if the relationship wasn't broken, but something else was? This is where it gets uncomfortable, and I need you to stay with me here. Because in this video, I'm going to show you a principle so simple, so elegant, that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It's called the Boomerang Principle, and it explains why your life keeps giving you the same experiences, no matter how many times you try to run away from them. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't another just be grateful lecture. This is the physics of how your reality actually works, and the moment you understand it, everything changes. I'm not here to sell you hope. I'm here to show you a mechanism, a precise, almost mathematical law that governs what shows up in your life. Most people will never learn this, not because it's hidden, but because it's so simple that the mind dismisses it. But you're still here, and that tells me something about you. So here's my invitation. Give me 30 minutes. Don't just listen. Feel what I'm about to share, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your thoughts return like a boomerang. And more importantly, you'll know how to throw a different one. Ready to go deeper? Let's begin. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine two people. Both of them live in small, modest apartments. The paint is peeling, the heating doesn't work properly, the view from the window is nothing special. Person A wakes up every morning and thinks, I hate this place, I can't wait to get out of here. Everything about this apartment makes me miserable. Person B wakes up in the exact same conditions and thinks, this place has kept me warm. It's not perfect, but it's mine for now. I'm grateful for the roof over my head. Now here's the paradox. Both of them eventually move to better apartments. But their experiences couldn't be more different. Person A moves into a beautiful new place and within months discovers problems. The plumbing breaks. The landlord is difficult. The neighbors complain about everything. The dream apartment becomes another source of frustration. Person B moves into a similar place and it feels like home from day one. Small issues arise, but they resolve easily. The neighbors are friendly. The space feels peaceful. Same starting point, same upgrade, completely different outcomes. Why? This is the part that most self-help content gets wrong. They tell you to think positive and visualize success, but that's not what's happening here. This isn't about putting on a happy face or pretending everything is fine. This is about something far more fundamental, something that operates beneath your conscious awareness 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Let me explain. You've probably heard that we live in a quantum field, an infinite space of possibility where everything that could exist does exist as potential. But here's what nobody explains properly. This field doesn't respond to your words. It doesn't respond to your vision boards. It doesn't even respond to your actions. It responds to your frequency. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every reaction you have, it creates a broadcast, a signal. And this signal acts like a tuning dial on a radio. Whatever frequency you're broadcasting, that's the station you receive. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people are broadcasting on the frequency of what they hate. They think about what's wrong with their job. They focus on what's missing in their relationships. They obsess over the problems they want to escape. And all of this, every complaint, every frustration, every moment of resentment is a signal. The field receives this signal, and it responds with perfect precision, not because it's cruel, but because it's accurate. It simply matches your output with corresponding input. Think about it. When was the last time you spent an entire day without a single complaint, without a moment of irritation at traffic or weather or someone's behavior? For most people, the answer is never. The negative thought mixer runs constantly, churning out signals that shape tomorrow's reality. And this is where the boomerang enters. Because those signals don't just disappear into the void, they travel out into the field and they curve back. They return to you, not as the same thought, but as the same energy, in a different form, a different situation, a different problem that feels strangely familiar. You curse the rain on your way to work. Your vacation gets ruined by unexpected storms. You complained about your ungrateful boss. Your new boss turns out to be even worse. You resented your partner for not understanding you. The next partner has the exact same blind spot. This isn't coincidence. This isn't bad luck. This is physics. And until you understand this mechanism, you will keep throwing the same boomerang and wondering why it keeps hitting you in the back of the head. So here's the question I want you to sit with. What frequency have you been broadcasting, and what has it been bringing back to you? Now let's go deeper into the mechanism itself, because once you truly understand how the Boomerang Principle works, you'll see your entire life through new eyes. Here's the core concept, and I want you to really hear this. In the Reality Transurfing model, there exists what we call the space of variations. Think of it as an infinite library containing every possible version of reality, every possible life track, every possible outcome. They all exist simultaneously as potential waiting to be activated. You're not creating reality from nothing. You're selecting it. You're tuning into a specific life track that already exists in this infinite space. And the tuning mechanism? It's not what you do. It's what you radiate. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you're holding a radio. This radio can pick up any station: jazz, classical, rock, news, static. The stations are all broadcasting simultaneously, but you only hear one at a time. The one that matches your dial position. Your thoughts and emotions are the dial. When you wake up irritated, you've turned the dial toward life tracks that contain more irritation. When you spend your commute complaining about traffic, you've tuned into a frequency where traffic and things like traffic will keep appearing. When you hate your current situation with every fiber of your being, you're locking yourself onto life tracks where hateable situations are the norm. This is the Boomerang Principle in action. The energy you send out doesn't disappear. It arcs through the field of possibilities and returns to you, manifested as circumstances, events, and experiences that match its original frequency. Let me be very precise here because this is important. There are two ways the boomerang operates. First, reception. When you receive negative energy from people, situations, news, or your own thoughts, you absorb it. And absorbed energy changes your frequency. It's like tuning the radio slightly toward a darker station. You might not notice the shift, but the field does. Second, transmission. When you transmit negative energy through complaints, resentment, anger, or fear, you send it outward. And what you send returns, not immediately, not obviously, but inevitably. Here's an example that might hit close to home. Imagine you're planning a vacation. You've been stressed for months and you desperately need this break. But the week before you leave, the weather at home turns terrible. Cold, rainy, miserable. Most people react predictably. They complain, they curse the ski, they think, I can't wait to escape this horrible weather and get to the beach. And here's the boomerang in flight. That energy, the frustration, the resentment toward the rain, it doesn't stay at home when you board the plane. It travels with you, not in your luggage, in your frequency. And when you arrive at your paradise destination, something goes wrong. Maybe it's unusually cloudy, maybe there's a storm, maybe your hotel has issues, maybe you get sick. The form changes, but the energy returns. This isn't punishment. This isn't karma in the mystical sense. This is simple cause and effect at the level of energy. The person who looked at that same rainy week and thought, "Good, the plants needed water and soon I'll be somewhere warm." That person arrives at the destination broadcasting a different signal, and the field responds accordingly. Now here's where it gets fascinating. Most people think they need to control their circumstances to feel better, but the Boomerang Principle reveals the opposite. You need to feel better to control your circumstances. The inner state comes first, the outer reality follows. This is what scientists like Dr. Joe Dispenza have been demonstrating in their research. When your brain enters a state of coherence, when your thoughts and emotions align in a positive frequency, your electromagnetic field literally changes, and this field interacts with the quantum field around you. Bruce Lipton's work in epigenetics shows the same thing from a biological angle. Your thoughts don't just affect your mood, they affect your cells. They affect which genes get expressed. They affect your physical reality at the most fundamental level. This isn't metaphor anymore. This is measurable. So here's the revolutionary insight. You're not a victim of your circumstances, you're a broadcaster creating them. Every morning when you wake up and your mind starts its familiar loop of worries and complaints, you're not just having thoughts, you're casting a vote for which life track you'll experience today. Every time you react with anger or frustration or despair, you're not just feeling emotions, you're throwing a boomerang that will return. And the most stunning part, the field doesn't judge what you ask for, it simply delivers. It doesn't know the difference between what you want and what you focus on. It only knows frequency. So when you spend all day thinking about debt, even if you're thinking, "I don't want debt," the field hears the frequency of debt, and it matches you to life tracks where debt exists. When you constantly worry about your health, the field matches you to life tracks where health problems appear. When you obsess over being alone, the field finds life tracks where loneliness is your companion. Not because you deserve it, not because you're being punished, but because that's the signal you're sending, and the boomerang always returns to the hand that threw it. Take a breath here. Let this land. Because if this is true, and I invite you to test it in your own life, then everything you thought you knew about change is backwards. The solution was never out there. It was always in here. Ready to learn what to do with this knowledge? Let's continue. Now, I need to pause here and address something important. Because if you're like most people who encounter this information for the first time, a part of you might be feeling something uncomfortable right now. Maybe it's guilt. Have I been creating my own problems this whole time? Maybe it's shame. All those years of suffering, was it my fault? Maybe it's resistance. This sounds like victim blaming. What about people who face real trauma, real injustice? I want to speak directly to that voice inside you, because it deserves to be heard. This is not about blame. Let me say that again, because it matters. This is not about blame. Nobody taught you this. Not your parents, not your schools, not your society. For thousands of years, humans have been conditioned to focus on external circumstances, to fight against what we don't want, to see ourselves as victims of fate, luck, or other people's actions. This programming runs deep. It's in our news, it's in our conversations, it's in the very structure of how we think about problems and solutions. So if you've spent your entire life broadcasting frequencies that didn't serve you, that's not a moral failure, that's simply not knowing, and you can't be blamed for what you didn't know. But here's the shift. From this moment forward, you have a choice, not a burden, a choice, not responsibility in the heavy, guilt-laden sense, responsibility in the empowering sense, the ability to respond, the power to change your broadcast. Think of it like this. Imagine you've been driving a car your whole life without knowing it had a steering wheel. You thought you were just a passenger at the mercy of wherever the road took you. Bumps, detours, dead ends. You assumed that was just how driving worked. And then someone shows you the steering wheel. Does that mean all those bumps were your fault? No, you didn't know the wheel was there. But does it mean you can now choose a different direction? Absolutely. This is your steering wheel moment. The past is done. Whatever boomerangs you've thrown have already returned or are in flight. You can't unthrow them. But starting now, starting today, you can throw different ones. This isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming aware, it's about catching yourself mid-complaint and choosing differently. It's about noticing when you're tuning into frustration and gently turning the dial. Small shifts, that's all it takes. Not overnight transformation. Just small conscious shifts in the frequency you broadcast, and the field will respond, because that's what it does. It always has. It always will. The question is, now that you know about the steering wheel, what direction will you choose? So let's get practical, because understanding the Boomerang Principle is one thing. Living it is another. I'm going to share 3 practices that will fundamentally change the frequency you broadcast. These aren't complicated. In fact, they're almost embarrassingly simple. But simple doesn't mean easy, and simple doesn't mean ineffective. Here's the thing about transformative practices. The mind wants complexity. It wants 10-step systems and advanced techniques. Because complexity feels like progress. It gives the ego something to chew on. But the deepest truths are always simple. So simple that most people dismiss them. Don't make that mistake. Practice 1. Transmute the present. This is the foundation of everything else, and it starts with your current situation, exactly as it is. Whatever you're tolerating right now, whatever you're resenting, whatever you're waiting to escape from, that's where the work begins. I'm not asking you to pretend everything is perfect. I'm not asking for toxic positivity. I'm asking for something far more radical. I'm asking you to find genuine appreciation for what is. Here's how it works. Take your current living situation. Maybe it's not your dream home. Maybe the walls are thin and the kitchen is small and the location isn't ideal. Your habitual response might be to focus on these flaws, to mentally list everything that's wrong, to daydream about something better. But what if, instead, you paused? What if you looked at that imperfect space and thought, this roof has sheltered me. These walls have kept me warm. This space has been mine when I needed it. This isn't delusion, it's selection. You're choosing which aspects of reality to tune into. And here's the mechanism. When you appreciate what you have, you broadcast a frequency of abundance, and abundance attracts more abundance. When you resent what you have, you broadcast scarcity, and scarcity attracts more scarcity. The person who loves their small apartment will find themselves mysteriously, inevitably moving toward bigger and better spaces. The person who hates their small apartment will find their bigger apartment filled with bigger problems. Start today. Look around you. Find 3 things, just 3 that you can genuinely appreciate about your current circumstances. Feel the appreciation in your body. Let it change your frequency. This is boomerang work. Practice 2. Redirect the thought mixer. Your mind is constantly producing thoughts. Most people let this happen on autopilot, which means the default programming takes over. And the default programming, shaped by pendulums, by news, by social conditioning, is negative. You've probably noticed this. Leave your mind unattended, and where does it go? To worries, to problems, to replaying conflicts, to anticipating disasters. This is what I call the thought mixer, and when it runs unsupervised, it churns out signals that shape your future. The practice is simple. Occupy the mixer with intention. When you're commuting, instead of letting your mind spiral into work stress, direct it deliberately. Think about what you want to create. Visualize the experiences you want to have. Feel the emotions of your desired life as if they were already real. When you're waiting in line, instead of getting irritated, use that time to broadcast gratitude. Think about someone you love. Remember a moment that made you laugh. Tune your frequency consciously. This isn't about suppressing negative thoughts. They'll arise, that's natural. The practice is about not following them, not feeding them, noticing them, and then gently redirecting to something that serves you. Here's a concrete technique. Keep a mental catalog of positive images and memories. A vacation that filled you with joy. A person whose presence makes you feel loved. A moment of accomplishment that made you proud. When you catch your thought mixer going negative, switch to one of these. Really see it. Really feel it. You're not escaping reality. You're choosing which channel of reality to tune into. Practice 3. Neutralize the triggers. This one is advanced, but it's where the real freedom lives. Throughout your day, situations will arise that trigger negative reactions. Someone cuts you off in traffic. A coworker makes a snide comment. Plans fall through. The weather turns bad. The automatic response is to react, to get angry, frustrated, disappointed, and every reaction is a boomerang thrown. The practice is to create a gap, a space between stimulus and response. In that gap lies your power. When something happens that would normally trigger you, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, is this worth throwing a boomerang over? Because that's what reaction is. It's throwing energy into the field, energy that will return to you in some form. This doesn't mean becoming passive or emotionless. It means becoming selective. Some things are worth your energy. Most things aren't. Here's the reframe that helps. Every negative situation is a test, not a cosmic test, a practical one. It's an opportunity to practice maintaining your frequency despite external circumstances. Every time you pass the test, every time you stay neutral when you could have reacted, you strengthen your ability to control your broadcast. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop reacting to negative situations with negative energy, those situations begin to decrease. Not because you're avoiding them, but because you're no longer broadcasting the frequency that attracts them. The person who gets angry at traffic will keep experiencing traffic. The person who uses traffic as an opportunity to practice peace will find their commutes becoming smoother. It sounds magical. It's actually mechanical. These 3 practices, transmuting the present, redirecting the thought mixer, and neutralizing triggers, they work together. They're not separate techniques. They're 3 aspects of one fundamental shift. Taking conscious control of the energy you radiate. Start small. Pick one situation today where you'd normally complain and choose appreciation instead. Pick one moment where you'd normally worry and redirect to visualization instead. Pick one trigger where you'd normally react and choose neutrality instead. Small shifts, consistent practice, and watch what begins to change. So let's bring this all together. You came into this video perhaps feeling like life keeps handing you the same experiences no matter how hard you try to change them. New apartments with old problems, new relationships with familiar pain, new beginnings that somehow become old endings, and now you know why. The Boomerang Principle isn't a theory. It's not a belief system you adopt. It's an operating law of reality that's been shaping your life whether you knew about it or not. Every thought is a throw. Every emotion is a frequency. Every reaction is a vote for which life track you'll experience next. This is simultaneously the most confronting and the most liberating truth you'll ever encounter. Confronting because it means you can't blame the apartment anymore. You can't blame the boss, the ex, the economy, the weather, the government, or the universe. The common element in all your experiences is you, your frequency, your broadcast. But liberating, deeply, radically liberating, because it means you have power. Real power, not the power to control external events directly, but something far more fundamental, the power to control the signal that shapes which events you encounter. You've been holding the steering wheel your whole life. You just didn't know where to look. Now here's what I want you to understand about the path forward. This isn't about becoming someone who never has negative thoughts. That's not human. Thoughts arise, positive and negative, like weather patterns in the mind. You don't control whether clouds appear. You control whether you build your house under them. This isn't about toxic positivity, pasting a smile over genuine pain. It's about choosing, consciously and deliberately, where to place your attention. What to feed with your energy. Which frequencies to amplify and which to let pass. And it's not about perfection. You will forget. You will react. You will throw boomerangs you regret. That's part of being human. The power isn't in never falling. It's in how quickly you return, how fast you catch yourself, how gently you redirect back to the frequency you want to broadcast. Every moment is a new opportunity to throw a different boomerang. This morning's complaints don't determine this afternoon's reality. Yesterday's reactions don't lock in tomorrow's experiences. The field is always listening, and you can always change the station. So here's my question for you, and I want you to really sit with this. Starting right now, Not tomorrow, not Monday, not when circumstances improve, but right now. What frequency will you choose to broadcast? Will you look at your current life and find things to resent? Or will you look at the same life and find things to appreciate? Will you let your thought mixer run on autopilot, churning out worry and complaint? Or will you take the wheel and direct it toward what you actually want? Will you keep reacting to every trigger, throwing boomerangs you'll have to catch later? Or will you pause, breathe, and choose differently? The field doesn't care what you pick. It will match either one. It will deliver experiences that correspond perfectly to whatever signal you send. But you care. I know you do, because you're still here. 30 minutes into a video about changing your reality from the inside out. That's not casual interest. That's something calling you toward a different way of being. Trust that call. If this video resonated with you, if you felt that spark of recognition, that sense of finally understanding something that's been operating in your life all along, I want to invite you into a deeper conversation. Subscribe to this channel because this is what we explore here. Not surface-level motivation, not quick fixes, the actual mechanics of how reality responds to consciousness. Leave a comment below. Tell me, what's one boomerang you've been throwing that you're ready to release? Sometimes naming it is the first step to changing it. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's been changing their external circumstances over and over, wondering why nothing really changes. This might be the steering wheel they didn't know they had. We're building something here. A community of people who understand that the inner world creates the outer world, that frequency precedes form, that you are not a passive recipient of reality. You are an active transmitter of it. Your thoughts return like a boomerang. That's the law. But what you throw, that's your choice. And that choice, made consistently moment by moment, thought by thought, is how life tracks shift, how circumstances transform, how the same person in the same world begins to experience an entirely different reality. Not because the world changed, because the broadcast did. Now, before we close, I need to tell you something important. This is video number 10 in the Reality Transurfing series. And what you've learned today, the Boomerang Principle, it's foundational. But here's what happens next. Once you start changing your broadcast, once you begin throwing different boomerangs, something pushes back. There are forces, invisible structures that most people never see that don't want you to succeed. They feed on your reactions, they thrive on your negativity, and they're incredibly good at what they do. In video number 11, I'm going to show you exactly what's been hijacking your energy without you even knowing it. How to recognize these forces when they strike, how to break free from their grip, and how to ride something called the wave of success without getting pulled off. Because understanding the boomerang is one thing. Staying on your new frequency when everything around you tries to drag you back down, that's the real game. Video 11 is where theory becomes practice, where you learn not just to throw different boomerangs, but to protect yourself from the ones being thrown at you. Don't miss it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for going deep. I'll see you in the next one.